Gospel on the Nile. 24th of September, Episode 4. Luxor Carriage Ride and Luxor Temple.
In the morning, the group of 108 passengers headed to the Cairo airport for our brief flight to Luxor. Because of a few problems, our flight was delayed. But we soon got on our Egyptian Airlines flight. Flying from Cairo to Luxor is much faster compared to a 400-mile bus trip. Upon our arrival, we proceeded to pick up our belongings and board buses to the Steigenberger Hotel, which is located adjacent to the Nile River.
Joseph was ruling Egypt for 80 years.
As our buses drove through Luxor, Mido teaches us the history of Luxor. We passed the Temple of Luxor on the way.
So that is Luxor Temple, is related back to the time of 1500 years BC and used all the way till the time of the 5th century AD. So the period of the Exodus, the period of Moses, it is the period of Luxor. The capital was Luxor, and everything happened here in Luxor.
After settling in our rooms, the tour group has a 1-hour conference where Bruce Porter talks about his view of our eternal family.
And the enduring nature of families is something that we don't often stop long enough to think about. We sing the song, families can be together forever. And that puts a thought in our mind of an eternal family home evening. I've got 10 kids, and to think of an eternal family home evening is what I would call purgatory. You laugh because you know it's true. Everyone has to be sealed to God, as it explains in Mosiah chapter 5. Everyone has to be sealed to God, and the way I am sealed to God is I'm sealed to my parents, who are sealed to their parents, who are sealed to their parents, who are sealed to their parents, who are sealed to Adam and Eve, and who are sealed to God. Everyone has to be sealed to God, and then two of those, the male and the female male, can be sealed together to become a God. To whose family home evening are you going to go to? Your parents or your spouse's parents' family home evening? Whose family home evening is your daughter going to go to? Your family home evening or her husband's family home evening? See, if you begin to think about the logic of it, then there becomes some issues there on family. So the goal is that my children will be as good or better than I, and that they will receive the same exaltation. Having children was, in my opinion, again, you don't have to believe anything I say, having children on earth was God's way of cloning physical bodies for spirits to inhabit. So, what family can be together forever? God's exalted family, not my family. My children are going to go off and get married and be the same as me and my spouse and I, or my parents or my grandparents. Children are not required for exaltation, except to give you trials and tribulations. But it's not children that are required for exaltation, it's a worthy spouse that's required for exaltation, not your children. And so your children are going to have children and grandchildren, and your ancestors are there, but it's God's exalted family that can be together forever, not my family. I don't own my children. I change their diapers when they come into the world, and they change my diapers when I go out of the world. I hope. They can hire that out. You can have anything in this world for money. They're going to be as equal to us as we are to them and anybody else, and so it's not my family. It's God's exalted family that can be together forever. So that's what I was talking about. My goal as a teacher is to make you think there might be more than you thought. That's all I want to do. And as I tell all my classes, you don't have to believe a thing I say, and that's the first requirement. A scholar's greatest ambition is to become a footnote. And I don't want to become anybody's footnote. You have scriptures, you have prophets.
Greg Matson from Quick Media shares his personal perspective on gospel subjects. Greg's show has weekly guests where they discuss culture, current events, and religious studies. He has teamed with Bruce Porter in helping to teach current gospel and cultural subjects during the Egypt tour. After a brief itinerary for this evening excursion, we proceed to a dinner outdoors, situated on the banks of the Nile River. We thoroughly enjoyed the company of another couple in our tour group and observed the sunset as Egyptian felucca boats sailed by. Upon finishing our meal, many on the tour opted to take an adventurous carriage ride through vibrant Luxor. Each couple boarded the horse-drawn carriages. Traveling in groups, our fancy rides dodged the traffic and busy nightlife. A significant portion of the populace prefers to shop during the evening hours, avoiding the extremely hot daytime temperatures. It's remarkable no one gets run over or crashes on the lively streets. Children and adults alike dodge carriages and weave through traffic to reach their destinations. The sidewalks, if any, are usually clogged with stuff, so the streets include everybody and everything. Julia climbs up next to the driver for a 360-degree perspective. The group of carriages travels along a narrow road, just wide enough to accommodate them, and those avoiding the horse-drawn procession. An Egyptian boy yells hello to us from the apartments above.
Hello.
Children wave at us as we go by. I think my favorite part is watching the young children reacting to us as we pass by. There are traffic jams and honking from the mobile crowds as cars, vans and motorcycles make their way through the streets. It seems that small vans are a custom mode of transportation in Luxor, similar to taxi services. Water pipes, shisha, smoke shops are very popular with men. They are the second most popular way to smoke. We're surprised to see the Luxor train station down the street. Taking trains is a popular way to travel along the Nile from city to city. There are trains that go to Cairo and Luxor every day. They cost much less than flights. Fares for tourists are usually more expensive than those for the local population. Certain train cars are equipped with sleeping quarters. The call to prayer is heard on the loudspeakers throughout the city. The groups pass by the Luxor Temple, which is illuminated in the evening. We watch a boy catching a ride on the carriage's axle in front of us. At the end of the ride, we gather on the buses and drive through Luxor to the majestic Luxor Temple complex. On the way, Mido points out the only traffic light in Luxor. Arriving, we walk to the front facade of the 1400 BC Luxor Temple. The crowds are numerous this evening, primarily drawn by the cooler temperatures. The temperature isn't quite what you'd expect for that time of day. Going from 110 degrees to only 100 degrees isn't much of a relief. The Sphinxes, or the Avenue of Kings, were our first stop. Mido informed that there were a total of 1,056 statues situated along the route. The route stretches for 1.7 miles from the Karnak Temple to the Luxor Temple. It was the path of an annual ritual procession during the Opet festival. Among other reasons, the festival reinforced the fertility of the harvest by the flooding of the Nile, which yearly brought rich nutrients to the farmland's soil. During the reign of Thutmose III from 1458 to 1426 BC lasted 11 days. The time frame was extended to 27 days after it was ordered by Ramesses III. Best not let a fun time end too soon. In 2021, a similar reenactment of the Opet festival was performed by the citizens of Luxor. The Sphinx Avenue Parade Spectacular was such a success. It has been held every year since. After photographing the Sphinx's Avenue, the group walked to the front of Luxor Temple. The front carvings are explained by Bruce.
On the front of this is the battles showing the pharaoh overcoming the enemies of Egypt. When the pharaoh is generally sitting on a throne, sometimes the enemies will be on his footstool, showing order. And if you remember in the Old Testament, it talks about, or in the New Testament, how he's putting all enemies under his feet. And we see the same concept showing up here in the Egyptian wisdom literature, what they call wisdom literature. Under each of these two statues that flank the entrance in there, you'll see the uniting of the two lands, which goes back to the Narmer palette, and Menes, the first pharaoh. And they'll be tying the papyrus and the lotus blossom together. They'll be tied in the middle. Tied in the middle, that's the uniting of Upper Egypt with Lower Egypt under one kingdom, and the pharaoh sitting on the throne. And then it's sloped down, he's sitting on a primordial mound. When you have a flat area with a front slope on it, that always represents that primordial mound also.
The obelisks symbolize the rising sun. The carved pieces were formed from a single piece of red granite, quarried some 100 miles, 160 kilometers, south of Luxor in Aswan, transported on a specially designed barge and secured with ropes and sand. The top of the obelisk was thought to be covered with bronze or gold, representing the Ben stone with its meaning. The carved baboons at the base of the obelisk represents the announcement of the rising of the sun. The temple is considered a straight axis temple, even though it's somewhat bent on the axis. This was intentionally done so that the direction is matched straight down the Sphinx's Avenue to the Karnak Temple complex. The front facade depicts the battles of the pharaoh against the enemies of Egypt. The temple originally had 2 obelisks. At a cost of 2.5 million francs, the stone from the other pedestal was moved to the Place de la Concorde in Paris, France. It was a gift from Muhammad Ali Pasha, ruler of Ottoman Egypt. The main entrance today is dominated by the pylon of Ramesses II, which is flanked by 2 colossus statues of the king. 4 other statues also adorn the front of the Luxor Temple. The tour group takes part in a group photo in front of the entrance and statues. When the Luxor Temple was excavated, Bruce explained how much it was buried by the sands of time.
That's a mosque at ground level. That was the door to the mosque at ground level. There was probably a few steps going up to it, but the soil had come in, and the soil and the sand had come in that high, and they built the mosque at ground level. And it's because of the floodplain, and it's because of the sand and the winds and everything that happens over time.
Bruce responds about the Chapel of the Triad, which features a portrait of the father, mother, or spouse and son as depicted on the columns.
One of the things I just wanted to mention here in this temple, and we'll see it at the Karnak Temple tomorrow, is the Triad, the Chapel of the Triad, and that's behind me. You always have three rooms for the movement of gods at the festivals. You have one for the father, one for the mother, and one for the son, and that's what this chapel is right here. The father in the center. You can't see it very well, but if you can block that light up there, the ritual embrace is on each side of the lintel.
The immense court of Ramesses II spans 188 feet in length and 168 feet in width. 74 papyrus columns with bud capitals surround the court. In the northwest corner of the court, there is a shrine to Thutmose III. In the southern portion of the court, there exist several standing colossi of Ramesses II. The column capitals have been carved to resemble lotus or papyrus. In the columns of the courtyard, writings are carved explaining the importance of early Egyptian beliefs about life and the afterlife. There were also parts of the Luxor Temple that became a Christian church. Some of the original Egyptian artwork is covered in paintings. Mido talks about the walls of Luxor's Holy of Holies and what each of the carvings represent. He explained that some figures are painted with blue colors.
This is the God. Blue! What is the blue color? Islam is treasury. Why it's in a blue color? They are not living in this kingdom, they are living in the heaven kingdom. The kingdom of God, which is all the way up in heaven, with a blue color, the blue color of heaven. That's why I'm working with my professor now for over than 7 years, 8 years. I'm always choosing the blue color.
Mido takes the group to what is known as the Holy of Holies in the Luxor Temple. He shows a wall with hieroglyphics that shows Alexander the Great. The first part of the wall hieroglyphs shows Alexander with a crown on his head and wearing Egyptian dress of an Egyptian king. He has taken off his shoes because he's on holy ground. He is facing the god of Egypt, who is Amun-Ra. Furthermore, he acquires the DNA of the gods. The hieroglyphs show he is a symbol of fertility and the offspring of God.
And by this way, he will got the DNA of the gods. If he got the DNA of God, by this way, he could collect it in a jar. You see the sperm coming down, and he's collecting the sperm in a jar.
Mido reads the cartouche.
With this DNA, he would become a king of Egypt, writing down his name inside the cartouche. That is the name of Alexander, A-L-K-S-I-N-D-R-S, Alexandrus. So Alexander put his name inside the cartouche like an Egyptian king.
The final section shows, giving him the key of life to his nose. He now has the confidence of God.
Alexander have here the key of life to his nose. Alexander here have the covenant with God. The di anch snep was mi ra. So he got all the power as a power with authority, long life, eternal life, and health for himself and his priesthood. That is exactly what all the Egyptian people think is true, and Alexander here followed the steps of the Egyptian. So by the concept of the Egyptian, Alexander has been exalted to become one with God, and he's one with God. It doesn't matter if he's wrong or not, he becomes now the king of Egypt and the son of God in the Egyptian land.
Alexander followed in the footsteps of the Egyptians and became exalted, becoming one with the god Amun-Ra, and becoming the son of God to the Egyptians. The tour group walks back through the Luxor Temple complex and takes time to photograph other views of the ancient ruins before we head back to our hotel.
Our next episode will take us to the magnificent temple of Hatshepsut. Then we're off to explore the famous Valley of the Kings. After, our group went to an alabaster shop and an Egyptian carpet factory. Then it is time to board our Nile River boat and settle in for further adventures down the River Nile. We hope you will join us again in episode 5 with Bruce Porter and his epic tour, Gospel on the Nile.